Well, good morning, everybody. How are you? Welcome into the show. My name is Marc Farzetta. We call this little thing we do here the Farzy Show, and we're at the Steven Singer Studios. Well, that sucked last night. John Gonzalez will join us a little bit later in the show of TheRinger.com. You may have heard of it. Phenomenal website. John obviously was here in Philadelphia for a long time, and then he moved out to the West Coast, and he'll help us walk through all things Sixers. I'll tell you this. John and I jumped on a call last night right after the game, and I will say this. He is more concerned than I am. I don't know. I think I'm more pissed off than he is. And here's where I'm at. I'm angry. I am pissed at the way the Sixers played last night. I am pissed overall that they couldn't really put a huge gap between them, a playoff huge gap, 2 games between them and the Atlanta Hawks, because I believe they're a much better team than the Atlanta Hawks. And last night they certainly didn't show that. And we'll get to me being chesty in a second. But I am definitely infuriated by the way the Sixers played basketball. I'm infuriated, but I'm not concerned. Going around social media last night, of course, there was a lot of anger and all that, and I certainly share that internally. But in terms of overall confidence as to whether or not they're going to win this series still, I still feel like people still think they are going to win this series. So if that's the bottom line, then it's like, hey, what are you getting upset about? Well, I'll tell you. You never know. As good as you think your team is or as bad as you think your team is, and we've certainly had our share of bad teams in Philadelphia, guess what happens every once in a while? They win. The Sixers during the process years, they still, as bad as they were, they still managed somehow miraculously to win 10 games in a season. Even that seems high for as bad as they were. But now as you're in the playoffs and you're trying to get past that point that you haven't been past in 20 years, which is to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, you find yourself back in that same spot of thinking, oh, well, all right, well, we're a great basketball team, so they'll make it past. They'll make it past the second round. They'll get into the Eastern Conference Finals. And you think you have that, and you think the Sixers, have cracked the code on the Atlanta Hawks. And, oh, man, after Game 3, they got it all figured out, and that's certainly what I thought. The Atlanta Hawks go ahead and take a big old pie and, boom, put it right in your face. And that's more or less what happened to the Sixers last night. Joel Embiid going out there and going, 0 for 12 in the second half? Not making a field goal in the second half. Missing a potentially game-winning layup at the end of that ball game. Yeah, I'm pretty pissed off today. And I know some people were trying to call Doc Rivers out on the carpet for even going to Embiid in that situation. The bottom line is I think he has to go. Not I think. He has to go to Joel Embiid in that situation. You give the ball to your best player. In the worst-case scenario, he gets fouled if he's going to the hoop. You don't expect him to miss a layup. And then you have Ben Simmons coming in on the other side. Maybe he's the one that's going to clean that up and throw it down, whatever. But really, overall, the way the Sixers played in the second half, it's hard to look at just one play, even though that's the big play. It's hard to look at just one play and say that's the reason that they lost this basketball game. The main reason they lost is because their offense completely broke down. Their offense continued to try to be run through Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid just didn't have it last night. And I'm not talking about conditioning as if he's, he was running to the wall or running to the ground and he just doesn't have it. And he's on fumes last night, and he certainly was. And that's no excuse. That's not a compliment to say somebody was on fumes. But whatever it was, I am hoping it was just a little conditioning issue. I'm hoping it was just something that will affect this game in particular. I'm hoping the reason he went back to the locker room in the second quarter is the only reason he struggled as bad as he did last night. I'm hoping it's nothing long-term. That's my only concern coming out of this game. Other reasons to be frustrated, other reasons to be angry, other reasons to be flat-out furious. Certainly there's a long list there. But when it comes to just being they're done, they're cooked, I certainly don't feel that. Now, I mentioned I'd get to this, so here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I tweeted this out in the third quarter. I'm not proud of it, but there it is. I'm going to be real with you. I thought in that third quarter it was that really cute part of the game where the Hawks think they're going to win, and then all of a sudden somebody just go ahead and squashes all their hopes and dreams. And I thought that person was actually going to be Shake Milton, believe it or not, last night. And that wasn't the case. Shake Milton did step up in a couple of occasions and help the Sixers team expand their lead to 4 a couple of different times in this game. Hit a big 3 for you in this game as well. But Shake Milton was one of the guys in that fourth quarter that just had brain fart after brain fart. Ben Simmons turned the basketball over. Joel Embiid turned the basketball over. You had Shake Milton turn the basketball over on a kick out from Ben Simmons. Just another example of why Ben Simmons should be able to take it to the hole or rise up and shoot a 10-foot jump shot, and maybe you don't have to worry about forcing that pass. But bottom line, it's still on Shake Milton. Not saying anything else. Just still on Shake Milton. But you just had a total unbelievable breakdown offensively. And Joel Embiid overall, 4 for 20, 0 for 12 in the second half. He missed the layup that I already mentioned, looked exhausted throughout the game. And there was a couple of things that went on after the game that we'll get to in his post-game press conference that just still, one left me actually feeling okay. The other left me feeling like, what? Joe, really? Is now the time for this? So we'll get to that. We'll talk about Ben Simmons' 11 points in the game. He was a couple of assists shy of a triple-double. But overall, the aggressive Ben Simmons that this team needed, especially when Joel Embiid was not producing the way you wanted him to, you didn't see any of it from Ben. And Simmons even admitted to it after the game, saying, "Yeah, I could have done that. I could have done that. I could have done. I could have done that more." He says in the post-game press conference. Like, okay, cool, great. By the way, also Tobias Harris had another just hideous turnover in that fourth quarter. Everything went wrong for him, and I can't help but think the way the Hawks played the first 3 quarters of Game 1. And everyone was freaking out and scared, and I get it to a degree, especially after last night's game. But for me, I was like, the Hawks aren't that good. They're not. I know they're a good basketball team. I never say the Hawks are a bad basketball team, but the Hawks aren't that good. They're a good basketball team. They're not that good. The Sixers were a very bad basketball team last night. They were flat out awful last night, and their best player had his worst game, maybe as a professional, since his rookie season. That's how bad that game was. I don't think they're going to get back to that level, that low level of basketball again. I don't think they're going to get back to Joel Embiid shooting 4 for 20 from the floor and not making a basket in the second half. The Sixers lost this game to the Hawks by 3 points and had multiple opportunities to actually win this game and did not. As bad as they played, the Hawks couldn't squash their hopes and dreams in terms of until the last couple of minutes of this game. Sixers were in it to the end. And I know I'm going to sound like an eternal optimist here, but as pissed off as I am at the way the Sixers played last night, I'm still not concerned that the Sixers will lose this series. I don't see them playing nearly as bad as they did last night. That's the nicest thing I'll say about them all day. Because for the life of me, I don't know what Joel Embiid's issue is. I know he's got the partially the tear in his meniscus, right? That's what I was mostly concerned about, that it was something long-term. Maybe he tweaked it. Maybe he did something to make it worse somehow, and then he was going to play like this for the remainder of that game and then the remainder of the series for however many games he plays. Then he might have to miss a game. They might have to sit him a game. I don't know. But if it's just if it's conditioning, well, then shame on you, Joel Embiid. I don't think it is. I think it's more to do with the knee than anything else, and he almost says as much after the game. But the way he went through that second half, I can't really remember, really even going back to his rookie year, seeing him look that bad, that out of it on the basketball court. And one of the things that ran through my mind, and I'm not saying this is the state that he was in by any means, but just in terms of, man, this is what he looks like now. And it made me flash to, I think he was on the JJ Redick podcast a year ago. And he talked about how throughout the year, he didn't really feel it. He wasn't really feeling basketball. And he was struggling because he had so much fun playing with Jimmy Butler. And then he wasn't with Jimmy Butler anymore. And he was almost searching for meaning in his basketball life. And then throughout this entire year, you saw an inspired Joel Embiid. You saw an MVP Joel Embiid. And now we got to say caliber because it's already been awarded a Joker, as we know. But we saw him play at the highest possible level we could see him play at, which is why it was so disappointing. Even though he still put up 17 points and 21 rebounds, to see the way he played in this game. This is why the eye test matters, because you can't look at Joel Embiid and go, oh, well, 17 and 21, man, this guy's great. Yeah, it was in terms of rebounding. Rebounding was awesome, especially in the first half of that game, first quarter of that game, 9 rebounds. Wow, all right. But the shot looked off from the start. When he came back in the fourth quarter, he immediately airballed the basketball, which didn't make you feel good about the rest of this game. The most egregious play when I knew the Sixers were really, really in trouble was about a minute 30 left in the game. I want to make sure I got this right. Minute 30 left in the game. Sixers are down 98-97. Joel Embiid gets the feed from Ben Simmons at the top of the key. Joel Embiid is a couple of steps off the block. He turns and faces Clint Capella. And instead of attacking the rim, he pulls up for a jump shot, which he leaves well short. Hits off like the bottom of the rim, near side, and goes right to the ground. That's when I thought, oh, they're done. And they had a couple of little breaths of life after that. But that was the moment where I was actually, it took me till about a minute 30 left in this game to really be concerned, like, oh, God, they're going to lose this game. This series is going to be tied at 2. And when I saw that happen, that's really when I started to go, all right, game 5 in Philly. All right, well, at least they're home. So at least that happens. But overall, just a lot of anger and frustration surrounding the Sixers and the way they played that game and the way Joel Embiid played that game last night. Matisse Thybulle, I love you, man. I don't think I need 5 threes from you. I don't think I need 5 3 attempts from you. I don't think that needs to happen. George Hill trying to respond to threes from the Hawks. Yeah, I could do without that. Those are some things that I would change going in the next game. And overall, I would just have Ben Simmons, who I think is your track star in terms of a guy that will never look exhausted on a basketball court. That's the guy that you need to step up here. Tobias Harris, he got you 20 points again. That seems to do every single game. That's what he'll give you. And that's great. You can rely on that. You know what you're getting from him. But as far as your other star there, your other all-star, if Joel Embiid doesn't have, if Joel Embiid doesn't have it cooking, Ben Simmons better be putting on his chef hat and making things happen for this offense. And he certainly wasn't doing that last night. He needs to be the guy to attack the rim, get you some points, and get to the free throw line. If he's going to miss him, you got to find a way at some point here, Ben, to hit those free throws. But if he's not going to go to the line, at least attack the rim. At least try to get your points that way. Unbelievable how bad they played last night. And I don't think they're going to go to that spot again, but that was horrific to watch the way the Sixers played last night. Absolutely horrific. I want to hear from some of the people post-game. First person we're going to get to, even before Joel Embiid, is Doc Rivers, because Doc was asked about when his offense really started struggling, especially in that third quarter, when they let the Hawks really back into the game right before the fourth quarter. Obviously, here's Doc Rivers on what went wrong with their offense.
We stopped passing. I thought that we started the game off that way. Then we got back in the ball movement. Then we went back to hero basketball. Basically everybody wanted to be the hero instead of just trusting the team, trusting each other. So when you do that, you usually lose, especially when the other team outworks you the whole game. And that's what they did today.
I think you know the game, the word. I think you know the word that was taken out of there, right there, by Doc Rivers. I can't agree with everything he said more. The only thing that I would kind of question a little bit was the hero ball part. When you stop passing the basketball, obviously you don't really have a lot of success, especially when one of the best things about this offense was the way they move the ball. The ball movement that Doc Rivers initiated in this offense is one of the greatest attributes one of the greatest additions, I should say, from last year to this year. And you can talk about players and Seth Curry, and you can talk about Dwight Howard coming off the bench, and even Danny Green throughout the regular season. You can talk about that. You can talk about stuff like that. But one of the things that really helped was just overall Doc Rivers' style and making sure that ball always was in motion. It did seem stagnant at times. And it did seem like somebody, I'll take over. And maybe that was Joel Embiid more than it needed to be. As a matter of fact, it was Joel Embiid more than it needed to be, especially when he checked back into the game. But when you talk about hero ball, I would like one of those heroes to at least attempt to be Ben Simmons. I would like Ben to attempt to be one of those heroes at least, and not moving the basketball and being more aggressive and taking it to the rim and trying to be a much better scorer, especially when you look over at Joel Embiid and his face tells you everything you need to know. I'm cooked. For whatever reason, he didn't have it last night. He said as much after the game. But as far as getting outworked, there were 3 or 4 different scenarios in that fourth quarter, and this was one of the most frustrating things. I equate this to a defense in football playing great for 3 downs, and then the other team decides to go for it on like 4th and 7, and they get it, and your defense can't get off the field. That's the way it was in the fourth quarter when you saw Bogdanovich go up for threes, miss them. They get the offensive rebound. They get the second chance points. Trae Young drives in for a layup. He misses. They get the offensive rebound. They kick it out for 3 points. John Collins attacks the rim, misses it, kicks it out to Trae Young. He hits the 3. Like, the offensive rebounds that happen, especially in a tight game like that, are infuriating when your guys can't get a hold of it. And Joel Embiid, 21 rebounds, couldn't get a rebound in that scenario. It was just so unbelievably terrible. All right, let's hear from Joel Embiid. Here he is after the game. This is about a minute long. This is a little back and forth he has with Keith Pompey of Philadelphia Inquirer. And he's talking to Keith Pompey. Keith's asking him about basically how he feels. And this is Joel Embiid, because this is, I hope this would answer questions for me going forward in this series. But here's Joe and Keith Pompey of the Inquirer.
I guess it's already known. Don't need to explain myself anymore. Man, just try to do the best I can.
So it's basically the knee?
Yeah, just trying to do the best I can.
Right. What happened on that shot? It seemed like, you had a good look.
Yeah, great look. I just didn't have the lift. Thought I got fouled too. But usually I would go up and, especially for a bucket like that, trying to dunk it, or, try to get fouled and get an N1. But I just seem to not be able to, jump. For obvious reasons, but like I said, it's tough. But you gotta think about Game 5.
And I guess not being able to jump, I guess that affected your performance in the whole second half with the going over 12.
There's no excuses. I gotta be better.
I like when he says there's no excuses. I got to be better, because there is an excuse, and it's his knee, and he's saying it the entire time until he's asked it point blank. The excuse is the knee, and that's not the excuse I'm making. That's the excuse Joel Embiid is alluding to. No excuses here, fellas. And no one's going to care about that knee. And look, I give Joel Embiid all the credit in the world. Hey, man, you're trying to gut it out. You got a bum knee. You're saying you can't jump now because of the knee and all that. Okay, fine. I get it. But no excuses for the Sixers in this series. I double dog dare the Sixers to get bounced out of the second round of the playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks. And by the way, you can check out our social media poll question brought to you by our good friends at Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com, which is very simple. Do you see the Sixers winning this series? Yes or no? Right now, it's knotted up 2 games apiece, coming back to Philly. The next 2 games, two of the next 3 games are going to be in Philadelphia. If it does come to it. Do you still see the Sixers winning this series against the Hawks? I still say yes, but I go ahead and double dog dare the Sixers to lose this second round series to Trae Young, his bum shoulder, and this group of good basketball players, but not basketball players that I would ever pick to beat the Sixers in a 7-game series. So yeah, you go ahead, and whatever injury, conditioning, Ben Simmons not being aggressive enough offensively, Doc Rivers not being a good enough coach, Tobias Harris not being able to giving you a lot but not giving you enough. Like, I go ahead. I dare you to lose this series and then watch the world burn around you, because you think people are bitching and moaning about the way Ben Simmons plays basketball now and highlighting all his defects as opposed to praising what he does well. Oh, man. You know what? I triple dog dare you to come back next year, Ben, without solving any of those issues. I come back next year and still shoot 60% from the foul line. Let's watch that happen. That'll be fun. But listen to Joel Embiid there with the back and forth with Keith Pompey. is really interesting because you do hear him talk about the knee, and that is a huge concern going forward, because if it now really is physically limiting his ability, then there is a huge cause for concern. And I will say it again, there's plenty to be pissed off from last night, but me personally, I'm not concerned about this series. I'm not worried about this series. The Sixers will still win this series, but bottom line, you never want to allow fear or any ounce of concern creep into your mind. And the biggest concern I have has to do with Joel Embiid. And really the only concern I have going forward has to do with Joel Embiid. Because if Joel Embiid's cooking, and even if Joel Embiid's not shooting 4 for 20 for a game and not missing every jump shot he takes in the or layup he takes in the second half, 0 for 12, they win this basketball game. It still came down to 8 seconds left to Joel Embiid having to make a layup to go up a point. It still came down to that. And then they still had another opportunity to win the game, but Seth Curry couldn't hit a crazy double clutch three-pointer that he thought was going in. It's a horrible feeling when you're a shooter, and not that I can identify, but when you're you let it go and it feels right, and you look, clank off the back. That's a bad feeling. But I don't see the Sixers being this bad again, as I said earlier. Here's something that did get under my skin. And it was Joel Embiid after the game. And did you stay up at all and watch the Jazz and the Clippers? Because here's what happened. The Clippers are really good at basketball. But for whatever reason, they're only really good at basketball when they're down 2-0 or 0-2, I guess, in a series, and then they want to fight back in it. So they're blowing out the Jazz. And by the way, more on this later in my big bet segment. They're blowing out the Jazz last night. And Kawhi Leonard went up for a dunk where I don't think he just dunked on 2 members of the Utah Jazz. I think he dunked on the entire state of Utah. I think he actually dunked on Karl Malone at the same time. Yeah, it was incredible. And if you haven't seen it, it's just gorgeous. You'll see it at some point today. But during Joel Embiid's post-game media session, he couldn't help but look up at the TV and watch Kawhi throw it down. Here's Joel Embiid after the game, checking that out.
It just felt like I didn't have it tonight, and of course you can kind of, oh my God, see that dunk?
That's it, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
See that Kawhi dunk? Oh, it's crazy, man. Wow. But you could say from the beginning of the game, it was tough. You could just tell, and if I'm not dominating, especially defensively, it's easy to tell. So I'm sure they saw it. But yeah, that Kawhi dunk was crazy. I got something to know.
All right. So let's just say this. Obviously, Joel doesn't seem that concerned. He seems like he's having himself a good time. But there are certain times where I don't want Joel to be goofy. There are certain times where I want him to be pissed off. I want him to be angry. And to look up at a TV in the middle of answering a question about how you didn't have it that night. Did you see that Kawhi dunk? Like, I don't want that, Joe. I want pissed off, this game's breaking my heart, Joel Embiid. I want crying Joel Embiid. I want a guy that right now is playing like his hair's on fire because he wants to go out there. I can't wait to get back there on game 5 and just absolutely take it to this team. Like, I want that. And we didn't get that last night. We got what felt like a pity party. And there's no pity party being thrown right here for the 76ers. Get your you-know-what together. Get out there in game 5. Reinstill some confidence. And then go into Atlanta and take care of some business. Because guess who's going to need some time off? As another series, by the way, is getting closed out. And that's the Bucks-Nets series. And the Nets look like they're not going to get Kyrie Irving back. You don't know about James Harden. The Nets could be done. This could be your Eastern Conference Finals. Just like you watched Toronto 2 years ago handle their business to make it to the NBA Finals and then later win the NBA Finals. Just like we watched that happen, you could watch that happen again if you don't beat the Hawks in this playoff series. Double dog dare you boys to get bounced out. It ain't going to be pretty in Philadelphia. I'm rooting for it. Hey, look, remember me? I'm the guy that did this. Yeah, I did that. All right, that's how confident I was in the third quarter. What an idiot. They lost by 11. I will say, defensively speaking, the Sixers John Collins, 15 shots for 14 points. Trae Young, 26 shots for 25 points. Bogdanovich, 24 shots for 22 points. As a team, 101 shots for 103 points. That's some pretty good defense by the Sixers there. That's some really good defense by the Sixers there. It's also a cold as hell night for the Hawks, who, by the way, early in this game, the Hawks could have been up. It felt like they could have been up 10 or 15 points in that first quarter, similar to the way they were in game one. But they just weren't hitting their shots. So the Sixers had some extra life in that. I know everyone wants to look at Joel Embiid and say, oh, look how much he struggled. Look how much Trae Young struggled. Look how much the whole team struggled. 101 points, or excuse me, 101 shots for 103 points. Oh, yeah, that's struggling. And the other thing was the turnovers. If the Joel Embiid not taking Clint Capella to the hole in the minute and a half left in the game, if that wasn't the first, like, oh, God, they could really lose this game. The other moment was with about maybe 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they put the graphic up there of turnovers, and the Sixers had 10 at the time, and the Hawks only had 3. And it was like, oh, they've given them that many opportunities? Damn, Sixers could lose this game. And then I think there was another 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter, which I alluded to earlier, with Tobias Harris and Shake Milton and Joel Embiid. It was bad. It was all around bad. And then this was something else that was concerning about last night. And I let you hear from Joel Embiid about the knee injury, and not so much conditioning, but the knee injury. Here is Clint Capella, the man that was D'ing up Joel Embiid. And I thought about 2 people. I thought of Shaquille O'Neal, and I thought of Charles Barkley when I heard this after the game. This is Clint Capella talking about guarding Joel Embiid.
Making his job tougher, contesting everything, make him work. Yeah, I saw that whenever you wear him out, it's everything becomes tougher for him. So that's how I know. Like, I knew it was a long series, and when the fatigue comes in, it's a different ballgame.
So Joel Embiid is saying that it was his knee that was hampering him. It wasn't conditioning. Clint Capella, while playing him, thinks it was his conditioning that he was wearing him out defensively. To me, it looked like a guy that was lumbering. It didn't necessarily look like a guy that was exhausted. It looked like a guy that was lumbering. Now, when I said last night on Twitter, he looked like he was on fumes, maybe not the best way to describe that, but that's more or less how it felt. And I was more concerned about the knee. Did he tweak something in his knee? If so, is it just something that's going to bother him for 2.5 quarters? Or is it something that's going to bother him going into Wednesday night's game, game 5 in South Philly? So those are the questions that we want answered. Hopefully he gets his treatment. Hopefully he gets some rest. And then he comes out and looks to take care of business come Wednesday night, tomorrow night. And hopefully that will be the case. I know one guy that always takes care of business. That man's name is Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. That's right. Maybe you've spent a long time with someone. Maybe that's a special someone in your life and you want to propose. No better place to go than Steven Singer Jewelers. My good friend Steven Singer has been taking care of the Delaware Valley for over 4 decades. And every single time you walk in there, you could be guaranteed this: the perfect price. You don't have to worry about negotiating. You don't have to worry about haggling. None of that. No pressure. Just go in and worry about what you want to buy. And guess what? You have a real jewelry expert standing right there to walk you through everything. So no pressure, no haggling, no pressure like that at all. Every time you walk in there, you know you get taken care of. You're going to get treated like you're $1 million, but you're not going to spend $1 million because everything right there is at the perfect price. No coupons, no sales, no corny sales pitches or anything like that. Just every single time, the perfect price. Straightforward, right between the eyes. Every single time at Steven Singer Jewelers. Guys really must hate this guy because he makes the process of buying a diamond so easy. And don't forget about this: fast and free shipping every single time at IHateStevenSinger.com. The other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. Like I said, for over 4 decades, he's been taking care of people with his amazing jewelry store. He specializes in diamond engagement rings and a real staff of real jewelry experts, real people that are ready to help you with the perfect price and the perfect ring every single time. No call center, no sales, no haggling, no codes, no discounts. Just the best possible price, guaranteed every single time. Check out Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia, or at IHateStevenSinger.com. Fast and free shipping. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, we're going to get to a man who's maybe not be as pissed off as I am, but he's certainly more concerned than I am. You know him, you love him. We used to be at NBC Sports Philadelphia, Comcast Sports Net. He wrote for The Inquirer. Now he's doing a phenomenal job writing for TheRinger.com. without further ado, let's talk to our good friend, John Gonzalez. Now on the Zatos Investments guest line, our old friend John Gonzalez. Gonzo,
what is up, my man?
How are you?
Great to see you.
It's great to see you. You look fantastic. The California vibes suit you well, my friend.
Thanks.
I'm still trying to digest all this. My basic take on the Sixers' loss to the Hawks last night in Game 4 was I still feel like the Sixers are the better team here, but they're not going to be the better team if they don't have Joel Embiid firing on all cylinders. So that's my only concern coming out of Game 4. How about you?
That's your only concern coming
that's
out of Game 4?
That's my only concern right now. I still think if Joel Embiid's 100% healthy, they win this series. If
man.
Then I have major concerns.
I have way more concerns than you. Sure, yeah. Embiid being healthy is absolutely important. He looked awful tonight. He did not look like himself. He looked like he was hunting for fouls rather than actually playing basketball, which is a concerning thing. But when you put up 38 points as a team in the half, that's disastrous. And I think like this team, my biggest concern for this team all season long has been how thin they are offensively. And it's wild to think, but you lose a Danny Green and like, all of a sudden, they're even more thin. And at the end of the game, like not saying like Danny Green would have been the difference in this game. I'm just saying like to highlight how thin they are. I mean, like Toby disappeared. Curry couldn't buy a bucket in the second half. Embiid was over in the second half. You can't get Ben Simmons anywhere near the ball late in the game. I mean, and you're looking at this and you're going, okay, well, Embiid was over in the second half. Who's going to score to keep them in this or win it? And the answer was nobody. So, yeah, Embiid's the key to the series, but offensively, they are dreadful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt like I almost felt like it was that old Superman complex where it was like, oh, no, Joe's still playing, so Joe's going to get something done. And it just wasn't there. I mean, he was, of all the Sixers, I mean, he was the one that was, I mean, really struggling throughout this game. Is it a concern for you that it's a conditioning issue, or is it a concern for you that it's a knee issue?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so much a conditioning person for him. Like I think he, when he gets to the line, even when he's tired, he's money. He just had a bad night offensively. And then, the knee is a concern for sure. But on a night where, you get the Hawks to shoot 36% from the floor and 30% from three, and they still pull off the win. I mean, that's not good. That's yet another concern. Throw that on my other list of concerns. My list keeps growing. You only have one guy on your list.
I got one guy. Yeah.
I got a very long list.
So, all right. So it comes to the rest of the series then. Obviously, it shifts back to Philadelphia. And it's one of those things where in Game 1, I didn't expect the Hawks to be the second coming of the Warriors, which I think we've talked about a lot in Philadelphia over the last 2 weeks. But I also didn't expect them to be this bad and still win, like you just pointed out. So what version of the Hawks do you think we see? Do you think we see the lights out version from Game 1, or do we see a little bit more of what we saw in this particular game where they were really struggling from the field?
Well, I want to add yet another concern on here because first half, I mean, the Sixers looked outstanding, right? But in the second half, even when Trae Young wasn't really having his best game offensively, I mean, what did he shoot from the field? He was 8 for 26. It took him 26 shots to score 25 points. Normally, you'd take that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Except for that pick and roll combination with him and John Collins, and then even with him and Clint Capella. I kept saying the whole night when I'm watching the game, when his shot's not falling, you feel like you have a chance against him. Except when he gets into the lane, then all of a sudden it's disastrous, right? Because the minute he gets in the lane, 1, he can convert. 2, he can get fouled and then he's going to convert from the line, or he can drop a dime on the pick and roll, or he's kicking out to any number of shooters. So like there's any 4 number of scenarios. Maybe the 5th is that you stop him, but in the second half, he was just dishing it out. And like he realized that he wasn't good offensively. So I think to answer your question, I'm concerned that on a night when Trae Young is not shooting well, they still figured out how to produce offense with Trae Young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with him being hurt, obviously, I agree with that. That is, I guess I should just keep a list of our concerns. Yeah, maybe you'll make me more worried by the time we finish this interview.
What kind of Philadelphian are you that you're not freaking out right now? It's freak out time.
Yeah, I understand that. It's weird. I'm not feeling it. I still feel like the Sixers are the better team, and I feel like Game 1, the Hawks were just unbeatable. I mean, they threw everything in the ocean. They threw everything in the net, and everything was fine. At the end of that game, you still lost by 4 points. They were still in that game. This game, obviously you got a really bad version of the Atlanta Hawks, but you got the worst version in the playoffs from your best player. And I think that's overall what is my major takeaway. Like, I don't expect the Sixers as a team to play that bad again, offensively speaking, especially if they know they're going to be without Joel Embiid, or if they know they're going to have him and he's going to be much better come Friday or Wednesday, pardon me, when it comes to the Sixers team going forward. I know my head's spinning.
No, and it should be, and you're forgiven for that, because after watching that half, who can remember what day it is anyway?
Yeah.
Look, if your question is who's the better team, I still think it's the Sixers, but this is a much tighter series than it needs to be, especially when, earlier before the game, a couple hours before the game, you see the news about, or last night, and then today in the run-up, you see the news about Kyrie, and you're thinking to yourself, man, the East is wide open again. All of a sudden, like, goes from the Nets are going to win this in a walk to, hey, could be anybody. Could definitely be the Sixers, especially if Kyrie's out. And now you got to remember that you got to get past the Hawks. The Hawks are, I think a lot of people in Philly wanted to go, oh, the Sixers are the better team, and I still believe they are, but that they're going to walk to the finals, right? Because they had the easy half of the draw.
Right.
If you get the Wizards and the Hawks, you should be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Well, maybe a lot of us underestimated the Hawks. They're a good team. They're a scrappy team. And again, on a night where they do not shoot well, they figure out how to produce offense, and the Sixers go in the tank. That is concerning.
Yeah. No, okay. I agree on all counts. I agree with mostly that the Sixers are still the better team. However, I did think after Game 3 that the Sixers more or less cracked the code, and it was going to be their series from that point on. And that certainly didn't prove to be the case, because, as they say, you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. Look at the Nets, as you pointed out. Obviously, James Harden's not there. Now Kyrie Irving's not looking good. And now the Sixers are in a very similar scenario, where they're already without one starter, and now they could possibly be without another going into the next game. I want to cross my fingers and say Joel Embiid plays, but after what you saw tonight, something's got to be way wrong with Joel Embiid. Do you think he – I mean, just look, crystal ball, not a medical expert. Do you think that he is going to get a game off here, or do you think this will be a situation where he just tries to play through it?
Tough time to take a game off. I mean, you were the guy who just said he's got to play for them to win. So
absolutely.
And I think you're right in that analysis. I mean, look, I'm not going to speculate on whether or not he's going to get a game off, or whether or not he's so injured that he won't be able to play in Game 5. Who knows what his availability is going to be? I will say this, though. Without him, all of a sudden it goes from bad to disastrous, right? I mean, you end up in just like an awful situation. So they better hope that he can get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The longer the series goes on, and the more close games you have, the more noticeable it becomes for Ben Simmons to start hitting some free throws. Obviously, be aggressive, offensively speaking, but the free throws continue to get a light shown on them throughout the playoffs. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, Karl Malone struggled early in his career with free throws. It seems like it's very rare that people come into the league struggling with that and then eventually get better. Do you think it's ever something we'll see Ben Simmons improve upon?
I mean, it's something we're always going to talk about until he does. I mean, even during the regular season when he shot in the mid to high 60% from free throws, and now all of a sudden he's in the playoffs and it's less than half of that. That's a killer, right? Like, you'd take 60% in a heartbeat right now. And instead, you can't get him anywhere near the ball in a late game situation. And also on that final play, offensively, he's sitting on a bench because, they can't have him anywhere near the ball. And they get just an awful weird shot from Seth because Shake held the ball too long and the offense didn't look like it was ready for a final game shot. And even before that, yes, Simmons ended up fumbling the ball out of bounds, but that wasn't Simmons' fault. I mean, Embiid got a good look from point blank range and bricked it. So, look, there's a lot to be said about Simmons' offensive woes, but that was a team loss where they had it. It was right there. And, they had a huge lead at the half, and then they just fumbled it.
Yeah. Do you fault Doc Rivers for going to Joel Embiid in that moment?
No, I mean, it was an open look, right? I mean,
yeah.
Most times if you said Embiid's going to get a wide open layup or next to wide open with some, harassment, but not really. I mean, he was right there. And then if he doesn't make that point blank shot, Ben Simmons is on the low block on the other side, and he's going to have a shot at a rebound and a putback. You're feeling pretty good about your chances. And neither one of them could make the play. I mean, that was an opportunity for them to really put the Hawks in a corner. They should have, one, because of the first half, and two, because they had that look at the end of the game, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm curious to get this perspective, and it's back to the Ben Simmons conversation, but for someone who hears more from the national people than we do here locally, what is the take on Ben Simmons? Is he completely overrated until he shoots and makes free throws? Or is he somebody that's like, oh, no, definitely a guy that's a 3-time All-Star?
Yeah, I think we can have two thoughts in our heads at the same time, right? We can say that he can influence the game in a number of like really incredible ways. He's awesome on the break. He's an excellent rebounder. He's a killer passer. He's a first-team All-NBA defender, right? Like he's a guy who can do so many good things for you. But, and this is a major caveat, one of the other ways that he can influence a game is negatively, and that's with his shooting. And that's shooting from the field when he's not on the block next to the basket or at the free throw line where he has just become like truly awful in the playoffs. And so you take the good with the bad, but in the playoffs, we know basketball is different in the playoffs, right? Like in the regular season, you're padding your stats and you're winning these games and it's not that big a deal. In the playoffs, if you can't make a shot or more specifically make a free throw, it becomes hugely, hugely detrimental to your team. And so that's where I think like we can have those two things in our head and go, yes, he's a very, very good player, but it's undeniable that he is sometimes a drag on his team in critical situations.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to Embiid here with one play, and you're gonna think again. This is such the anti-Philly guy mentality, but the play, John, I really got worried about Joel Embiid was when Ben Simmons dumped it down to him, and he was a couple of steps off the block with Clint Capella in his face, and there was maybe 90 seconds left in the game, I want to say, and instead of attacking the rim, he pulled up. It's the same thing that Shaq always rips him for. It's the same thing Charles Barkley always rips him for. He pulled up and more or less bailed out Clint Capella instead of attacking the rim. That was the play where I went, oh, wow, the Sixers are really going to lose this game. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, this was not a good game all the way around for those guys, and Embiid and Simmons are their main guys, and I don't think either one of them were aggressive enough. I think in Embiid's case, he was, as I said earlier, like I think for the first time in a while, that was one of the worst games I've seen Embiid play in a very long time, and certainly within months of this season, right? Mm-hmm. And he looked like a guy who wasn't right, but more than that was hunting for fouls, like multiple times up and down the floor where it, like, you know, maybe he should have gotten a couple foul calls, but this is not one of those games where you can blame it on the ref, especially when you have a 13-point lead at the half and you have an opportunity at the end of the game to put yourselves ahead and win the game. I mean, it was right there for them, but he clearly wasn't being his aggressive self. He wasn't a guy who was trying to dominate on the low post. He was a guy who was trying to pick up fouls and get calls, and it wasn't going his way. And also he was missing shots. I mean, he got to the free throw line 8 times, made all of them, but it wasn't enough. And same with Simmons. I mean, he just wasn't aggressive enough. When he gets into the lane, good things happen. But he wasn't doing it regularly. So, you know, again, right there for them, and they couldn't take it.
All right, I'm just going to keep writing the concerns here.
We've got a long list now. You had one guy on your list. Mine looks like a Christmas list.
You're buying too many gifts, my friend. I got to tell you.
Yeah. Well,
John, all right, last one for you here. Mm-hmm. Outlook on the rest of the series. How you feeling about the Sixers? You can go ahead and tell me the different scenarios, but what do you see playing out here with the Sixers and the Hawks?
So it's 3-game series now, right? I mean, like the Sixers still get 2 at home, so you got to feel good about that. You're going to have one more at least in Atlanta. They almost pull. I mean, it looked like I thought at the half it was over. It really felt to me like the Hawks were cooked. There was no life in the crowd in Atlanta. The team looked dejected. I thought this is an absolute walk, and the Sixers crumbled. So ultimately, I still think the Sixers are the better team. I picked the Sixers in the series. I'm not abandoning them yet, but if you're asking me like how nervous I was to start the series versus how nervous I am now, it's night and day. Like I was not nervous, and now I'm thinking, boy, I really should have considered that the Hawks are pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pissed off at the way the Sixers played tonight. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of like overall concern, overall worry about the rest of this series, it all is on Joel Embiid's shoulders right now. And hopefully that's not too much pressure on that knee of his. That's what I'm hoping for.
The knee, the shoulder's connected to the knee. That's what all the good doctors say.
It's just carrying us all right there.
That's exactly right.
John, always great catching up. Make sure you say hi to the missus, all right?
You're handsome and talented as always. Good to see you.
Good to see you too as well. The great John Gonzalez joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line. The brilliant John Gonzalez from TheRinger.com. Good to see John. Hadn't seen John in quite some time. Very real. Very real. I get everybody that is concerned about this. I'm not trying to, like, one thing I'm not trying to do today is comfort people, because when you're pissed off, the last thing you want to hear is like, it's okay, everything's fine. And it's like, nah, it's not okay. Everything's not fine. just calm down. I'm calm. Like that never works. But last night, I totally get people being frustrated. I certainly am frustrated. I get people being concerned. And we're just about to do our social media check-in, and I'll just give you the poll results as to this point right now in terms of whether or not people think the Sixers are still going to win this series with the Hawks. But before we get to that, I do want to tell you about our good friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Not only is it my favorite sportsbook of choice, but it's also America's top-rated sportsbook. So how do you go against America? Come on. America's top-rated sportsbook, DraftKings Sportsbook. I was certainly very active on this last night, especially after the Sixers lost. And I'll tell you why in our big bet segment. But it's easy to navigate. There's plenty of instructions for new bettors, and it's near limitless in terms of ways that you can get in on all the action with DraftKings Sportsbook. And when you do so, make sure you download the app and use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy, and take advantage of this great offer. DraftKings is putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits. That's right. Pick any basketball team that is still in contention, bet $1, and if that team wins, you win $100 in site credits. Don't forget, DraftKings Sportsbook also offers great odds and promotions on baseball and hockey as well, and so much more. DraftKings is safe and secure and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy to sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free site credits. Bet on a basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you claim $100 in site credits. That's promo code Farzy for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, present in Pennsylvania, new customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. How about our friends at Steak and Maine and SteakandMaine.com? You saw the pictures I popped up there yesterday of the beautiful steak, 2-pound tomahawk. Delicious. Absolutely delectable. Steak and Maine, fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality prime cuts of meat, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that. And an extensive wine list, including their own Cavada Cellars wines. I had a Cavada Cellar wines Pinot Noir with that steak, and it was absolutely amazing. Perfect pairing for it. They're open every day for lunch, dinner, or Sunday brunch. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself at steakandmaine.com for more information. Here's the other thing. It's right off 95. So if you're going south, if you're going to Baltimore for whatever reason, if you're going down Virginia, D.C., whatever, hop right off, get yourself a nice lunch, get yourself a nice dinner, whatever it might be. Steak and Maine, steakandmaine.com. Also, our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, you can check out all their writings when it comes to the Philadelphia sports scene. It covers it all. A local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. And speaking of the fans, I got to tell you about FanUp. Had another challenge yesterday about Joel Embiid, whether or not he'd get it together. I actually took the under on his combined points, rebounds, and assists. And he went under. Go figure. Even with all those rebounds, still. But Joel Embiid, not so great yesterday in terms of what we're normally used to seeing him achieve. But it was good. Somebody challenged me in that. Happily accepted that challenge. So if you want to be a real big hoops fan, make sure you get the FanUp app for everything, because the days of playing fantasy sports alone, they're over. Get the FanUp app. Download the FanUp app to your phone right now and take advantage of all that they're offering. And you get 2,000 bonus points right out of the gate when you use promo code FANUP. That's promo code FANUP. FanUp is the only app that you could bet with your friends, play essentially fantasy sports, and you can get great brand prizes. You can rise on their leaderboard, answer fun questions, issue fun challenges, accept fun challenges. You'll have a great time taking advantage of all things when it comes to the FanUp app. Download the FanUp app in the App Store. Use promo code FANUP for 2,000 bonus points. FanUp, just be fans. All right, let's get into our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine and SteakandMaine.com. Before we check at the comment section here, here's what you got. 73% of you, 73% think the Sixers will still win this series. 73% of you. That's actually higher than I thought it would be. So that's good. At least we're coming around on that. I still think the Sixers win this series. I don't think we're going to see them play nearly as bad as they did in Game 4. I don't think we're going to see that version of Joel Embiid again. And if we do, somebody else better step up. If you know big man ain't getting it done and is 4 for 20 from the field and is 0 for 12 from the field, then guess what? You better go out there and handle your business and step up for the big man. Let's get to our comment section here. Did Farzetta just say Peter Noir? Pinot Noir. Does it sound like Peter? Maybe I said Peter. I don't know. I don't have any idea why Peter would be my anyway. Pinot Noir. Delicious. Steak season. It is steak. When is it not steak season, to be honest with you? Last night I should have gone fishing. Tighten the lines, checking in. Tight line nation, excuse me. Oh, you guys are back from my kayak show. What's up? Good to have you guys back. Dan Schwartz checking in. Talking about John Gonzalez. Now listen to me, Daniel. Don't you dare. Don't you dare put John Gonzalez in the same category as Mike Sealski. All right? I get why people have a bone to pick with Mike Sealski because of the whole Flyers thing and people get pissed off. But John Gonzalez, come on. John's a fun-loving, outgoing party guy. Anyway, thank you for all that. Korkmaz's defense was awful. Dan, I see you writing that as well. Did anybody else see this happen? I think this was under a minute left to go in the game. And the Atlanta Hawks bring the ball up. I think this was actually after the Joel Embiid play where he didn't take it to the rack against Clint Capella that really bothered me. I think it was when they brought the ball up after that, and the Hawks did some great maneuvering at the top of the key, and they get the look they want, which is Trae Young being guarded by Furkan Korkmaz. And God bless him. Tobias Harris recognizes this, leaves his man on the low block, bolts out there to the perimeter to help out Furkan Korkmaz, and they ended up getting the ball back. So it was great help defense by Tobias Harris to recognize that Furkan Korkmaz is not the guy you want to see on Trae Young in the final minute of a ball game. Get a dog if you're scared, John. There you go, Daniel. Thank you. Taylor says major concerned. They're major concern when it comes to the Sixers team. Look, I do get it. Like, I was all chesty last night. I showed you the picture of my tweet, and I'm a big dumb idiot. I just felt like, oh, this is the part where they make a run and then the Sixers just squash that. And I thought Shake Milton was doing a great job of squashing that again like he did in Game 2. Turned out not to be the case. And I really did. I was on Fox 29, as a matter of fact, yesterday saying that the Sixers have taken care of business and we're good to go from this point out. Wasn't the case, unfortunately. What else do we have here? Thomas is saying lumbering. Hey, I do enjoy that. I don't know why I enjoy that description or that adjective, but that's what he was doing. He alpha'd Embiid. I assume that's Clint Capella. It certainly seems like he alpha'd him last night. Jacob, thank you very much. I don't know why I do Joel Embiid's voice with a lisp. I just think it's better with a lisp. Okay, somebody liked the John Gonzalez interview. Thank you, Benny. I appreciate it. Don Vito, no concern with the series. I'm more pissed off than concerned. They're still going to win this series. But you never want to see your team play as bad as they did. You never want to see your best player, your MVP candidate, your runner-up in the league of MVP. You never want to see him play that bad, and that's what we saw last night. I'm only concerned if Joel Embiid did something to tweak his knee last night, that's going to carry on to the rest of the playoffs. If that's 2 games, it's 2 games. If it's 3 games, it's 3 games. But bottom line is the Sixers team, what they showed me last night is nobody's ready to step up in the event that Joel Embiid isn't 100%. You know what it was for me? And I didn't make this analogy yet, but this dawned on me last night. Last night's game felt like if Joel Embiid would have still played Game 4 against the Wizards. That's what it felt like. Like he wouldn't have been 100%, but he still played, and that's what he would have given you. And the Sixers, with him in the game, couldn't find a way to say, all right, you know what, Joe, you don't have it. I'm going to take over. I'm going to take care of this. I got it. In that situation, the guy that really needs to step up is Ben Simmons. That's the guy that needs to attack the rim. That's the guy that certainly needs to make his free throws. What was Ben last night? 1 for 5 from the free throw line? again, inexcusable. Like at least give me the 50%. At least give me the 60%. One. Terrible. Trae Young is a damn crybaby. Dan, I agree with you on that. I'm not going to disagree. I want to see if I missed anybody that on the chat here. Luigi's checking in. I'm worried, Fars. Yeah, I don't blame you. Luigi says, I don't even need a weather girl right now. That's how worried you are? Luigi, now I'm worried about you. Man, good luck to you there, Luigi. Thanks for everyone who checked in here on our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com. Now it's time for our morning rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Morning rush really has to do with last night's Phillies game and last night's Utah Jazz game, which I'll get even more into in our big bet segment. But last night, Kawhi Leonard, if you haven't seen it, again, I'll I know I mentioned it earlier. You got to go out there and make sure you see this dunk because it was just insane. Like, I feel like Kawhi Leonard won the series with this dunk. Like, they were already up like 20 points at the time, and Kawhi threw it down, and it was just like Utah should have just waved the white flag and be like, yeah, well, I think we're good here. Thanks. This is a good run. Donovan Mitchell was pretty incredible this playoff run, but we're good. We're good on this. Thanks very much. So that happened. But the Phillies last night, I haven't mentioned them yet. Spencer Howard was off to a great start in last night's Phillies game. He looked phenomenal through the first 3 innings. And then the 4th inning, looked good actually through the first 4 innings of that ball game last night. And then in the 4th is really when he started to get gotten to. And in the 5th inning, they took him out. He actually got his velocity back up to about 96 miles per hour for a couple of pitches. And then it went by the wayside. Like, everything disappeared in like the middle of that 4th inning for him. And maybe an out or 2 into it. And then in the 5th inning, totally cooked. Joe Girardi takes him out. He only pitched 60-some pitches last night, 67 pitches for you last night. And 4 innings of work, 3 runs, all of them earned, 2 hits, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk for Spencer Howard. And that was really all she wrote for the Phillies. Offense did not muster anything for you as they lost 3-1 to the Dodgers. So their 4-game winning streak got snapped at the hands of the Dodgers last night. They'll keep it out there for today. Zach Eflin will be on the bump for the Phillies. But offensively speaking, I looked this up. Rhys Hoskins with runners on base. He's got 4 home runs with runners on base. 8 of his 12 home runs come with nobody on base. His splits this year are disgusting in a bad way when it comes to runners on base for the Phils. Runners on, Rhys Hoskins is hitting 194. Runners in scoring position, 222. No runners on, 273. For a guy that's predominantly hitting in the middle of your order somewhere, that ain't good. And hey, look, on-base percentage, bang the pots and pans. Yay, on-base percentage. That's when you're hitting like 1 or 2. When you're hitting 3, 4, 5, yeah, you got to have a higher batting average because you got to be knocking runs in at that point. And Rhys certainly is not doing that for the Phillies this year. Phillies back at it today. Again, 10-10 start time in Los Angeles. Zach Eflin on the bump for the Phils today. That's your morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Time for our big bet segment. Before I get to the big bet segment, there's a couple of more comments here that I wanted to get to. Corky is not the answer. Too much pressure by being the starter. It certainly seems like it, Justin. Even though earlier in the season, it seemed like that wasn't the case. It seemed like when he was with the starters, that defensively speaking, he would draw a better matchup because the better defenders were on the better players. And this game certainly didn't show that. Ryan's checking in, also saying, Ryan Fitz is checking in, saying they didn't do too much of posting Ben Simmons last night, but they didn't gain 3, which was effective. I can agree with the first part of that. I'm missing the second part of it. As far as posting up Ben Simmons, I would have loved to see a lot more of that, especially when Joel Embiid didn't have it. There's 2 signs that you can really look to with Joel Embiid that you just go, oh, he doesn't got it tonight. And the one is not attacking the rim at all times, like, for instance, spotting up against Clint Capella that I've mentioned 100 times already. And then the other time is when you see him as the last person in on your TV. When the transition happens, when they bring the ball up, and the last person in the shot is Joel Embiid. And it'll be like Ben Simmons at the foul line extended, just dribbling the basketball, waiting. And then next thing you know, Joel Embiid comes into your frame, and he's at the top of the key, and he's calling for the basketball. That's when you know he's pretty much cooked. And he did that a lot last night. In those situations, I want to see Ben Simmons dump the ball off to Joel Embiid at the top of the key instead of down low, and then Ben Simmons cuts to the rim or cuts to the block and actually posts up. That would have been a nice thing to see last night. So that's where I'm at with that. Let's get to our Big Bet segment. Big Bets brought to you by DraftKings and DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and take advantage. Use promo code Farzy when you do so. Here's what I did last night. Joel Embiid, I bet the Sixers to win at -3.5. I got him at -3.5. I think at game time they were up at -3. So I got him at -3.5. Obviously, I lost that bet. I also got Joel Embiid to hit a double-double in a win. They did not win. So imagine, you think I was chesty about the Sixers winning in general. I was pretty chesty about the Sixers winning and Joel Embiid getting that double-double, which he did obviously got. 9 rebounds in the first quarter. I looked at my wife and I said, Sixers to win in this game. I got the double-double. We're another vacation for you and me, babe. It wasn't the case. So I lost a couple of bucks on that game last night. But I couldn't help myself because I was up after John Gonzalez and I conversed. And I said, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to get in on some of this action when it comes to the Utah Jazz game with the Clippers. Utah Jazz at one point in the second quarter were plus 19.5. And I said, there's no way they're getting blown out by 20 points in this game. So I will go in and threw a couple of bucks on that game for them to cover that in-game live bet. And sure enough, they helped me recoup my investment. And then I got greedy and bet a couple of balls and strikes with the Phillies last night, made some more money back. So I ended up only losing like $10 last night. I made up for a good amount of that with some of the other bets I made. And I always told myself, don't ever bet to make up for a bad bet. I couldn't help myself. I did anyway. So there you go. I made some money back for myself. That's one of the good things you could always look forward to. When it comes to bets, and last night I was able to make a couple of bucks back, mostly because I had a pretty damn good feeling that the Jazz weren't going to finish that game with the way everything was looking in the second half of that game. I felt like Donovan Mitchell was still hitting his shots, and I felt like they were definitely going to be bringing things back for themselves last night, which is exactly what they did. So kudos to me, I guess, for knowing that. I want to get you. I thought I had the line written down for tonight's game, and I do not because I am a big fat idiot. So tonight's game, as I'm pulling it up for you right now, with the Nets and the Bucks shifting back to Brooklyn. No Kyrie tonight. No James Harden tonight. Okay, yeah, the line did move. I thought it was at 3.5. It's now at 4.5. The Nets are home underdogs. Plus 4.5 going into tonight's game in Brooklyn. PJ Tucker, man, licking his chops. I'm going to go ahead and take the Bucks on that action for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. My thanks to John Gonzalez of The Ringer for stopping by the show today and telling me how concerned he is about this series and also breaking it down for me as well from a national perspective. John Gonzalez from The Ringer. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. My name is Marc Farzetta. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. From the Steven Singer Studios. Thanks very much. Have a good one, everybody. Take it easy.